Welcome to Algorithmic Arguments. I'm your host, the Orchestrator. Tonight, we dive into a question that's been on everyone's mind for years. What would happen if America went to war with Iran? Can the Iranian military pose a credible threat to the United States' global dominance? Or would American firepower prove too much for them to handle? Joining me are General Patricia "Iron Pat" McKenna, a seasoned military strategist with unparalleled experience in leadership and national security. We also have Dr. Priya Sharma, whose insights into AI alignment might just shed light on the unpredictable nature of modern warfare. Marc Okafor brings his expertise in existentialism and political philosophy to consider the broader implications of conflict. And Doomsday Dave Hendricks is here with his unique perspective on societal collapse scenarios. Over the next hour, we'll dissect this complex issue from every angle. Expect sharp analysis, spirited debate, and maybe even a few surprises. Let's get started.
Commander Smithson, let's assess the situation report. Iran's military strategy centers on asymmetric warfare, leveraging proxy forces and missile capabilities to counter conventional superiority. Their Revolutionary Guard has approximately 125,000 active personnel, with a significant ballistic missile arsenal. In contrast, U.S. Central Command has a robust presence in the region, including Fifth Fleet and CENTCOM assets. The center of gravity here is not just firepower but strategic endurance. Iran's ability to sustain operations through proxy forces poses challenges for conventional military planning. American superiority lies in air power projection, F-35s, B-52s, yet Iranian missile technology has closed the gap somewhat. To prevail, would need clear objectives and rapid target identification. Our war plan must account for Tehran's nuclear ambitions and cyber warfare capabilities. I'd recommend mission-critical targeting of Iran's command structure to degrade their ability to coordinate attacks. That is correct. Decisive action would be essential in minimizing escalation risks. Understood.
General McKenna, your assessment overlooked Iran's cyber warfare capabilities, a critical aspect of modern asymmetric strategy.
Situation report, folks. When the grid goes down and conventional warfare escalates between Iran and the U.S., we need to assess asymmetric threats like cyber warfare. General McKenna's assessment did overlook this critical aspect. Iran's capabilities in this realm could give them a significant advantage. They've shown they can disrupt our infrastructure with relative ease. Just recall the 2012 Shamoon malware attack on our energy sector. That's a single point of failure right there. If their cyber warfare hits our command and control, situational awareness will be severely compromised. When considering firepower superiority, we must account for electronic warfare capabilities. It changes the battlefield entirely. What's your take on how Iran's unconventional tactics factor into this conflict?
Let's focus on the multifaceted nature of this conflict. We need to consider not just conventional and proxy warfare but also economic and cyber dimensions.
Let's examine the military expenditure data. In 2020, the United States had a defense budget of approximately $721 billion, while Iran's was around $24 billion. This significant disparity would likely influence the scale and duration of any potential conflict. The U.S. has a substantial advantage in terms of overall firepower, with advanced fighter jets, aircraft carriers, and precision-guided munitions. However, we must consider that Iran's military strategy might focus on asymmetric warfare, leveraging proxies, cyber attacks, and ballistic missiles to counterbalance the conventional superiority of American forces. I'd like to explore how these factors could impact a hypothetical conflict scenario.
Doomsday Dave Hendricks, while your points on cyber warfare are valid, Let's ensure we stay focused on the topic of firepower comparison between Iran and the US. Your mention of the 2012 Sharma malware attack is a good example, but let's analyze its implications in the context of current military strategies.
Let's not get caught up in just comparing numbers. Military strategy and adaptability play huge roles here. Robot face. Iran's likely to employ asymmetric warfare, exploiting US vulnerabilities like cyber attacks or proxy forces, rather than direct confrontation rocket. The real question is, can the US effectively counter these unconventional tactics? Consider how Hezbollah uses drones in Syria, a potential preview of what Iran could unleash on American assets. Bar chart. We need to assess not just firepower but also strategic depth and responses to non-traditional threats. Counterclockwise arrows button.
Let's dive deeper into the military dynamics at play here. One crucial aspect to consider is Iran's asymmetric warfare capabilities, particularly its use of proxy forces and ballistic missiles. While the U.S. has superior conventional firepower, Iran's strategy might focus on exploiting America's vulnerabilities through unconventional means. For instance, Iran could potentially target U.S. allies in the region or disrupt critical shipping lanes. I'd like to examine how these tactics might affect the overall balance of power and what implications they have for a potential conflict. What's striking is that despite being outgunned conventionally, Iran's strategy seems designed to make a war as costly as possible for the U.S., potentially deterring a full-scale attack.
The conversation's gravitating towards Iran's asymmetric tactics as a force multiplier, and rightly so. Rocket. Let's crystallize this. Tehran's strategy doesn't aim to match U.S. conventional superiority but to complicate it, making every military operation a calculus of risk. Bar chart. The real concern is that if Iran can bleed the U.S. through proxies and cyber attacks, Washington might struggle to sustain public support for a prolonged conflict. Robot face. I'd argue that's where Iran gains its strategic leverage, in the realm of endurance. Counterclockwise arrows button. Consider this: what happens when American troops are stuck in an endless loop of securing proxy targets? The optics alone could shift global opinion against U.S. involvement. Lightbulb. So, while conventional firepower matters, let's not overlook how asymmetric warfare redefines traditional battlefields. Globe with meridians.
Marc Okafor's assertion that Iran's strategy is solely to complicate U.S. operations oversimplifies their goals. Tehran also seeks to deter U.S. intervention.
Commander Hendricks and Commander Okafor have accurately framed the discussion. Iran's strategy hinges on asymmetric warfare, leveraging proxies like Hezbollah and investing in cyber capabilities. I'd emphasize that Tehran's center of gravity lies in sustaining these unconventional operations. Iran's Shahid-136 drones, for example, offer a cost-effective counter to U.S. air superiority. Their ballistic missile arsenal poses a direct threat to U.S. forces and regional allies. Disrupting logistics and supply chains would indeed complicate U.S. military operations significantly. Mission-critical targeting should focus on Iranian command structures and proxy force networks. We must integrate electronic warfare capabilities into our strategy to neutralize their asymmetric advantages. With respect, I'd argue decisive action in cyber and missile domains will be essential in minimizing escalation risks. Let's prioritize those objectives. Understood.
Let's focus on the operational implications of Iran's asymmetric tactics and how the U.S. can effectively counter or mitigate these strategies.
General Reynolds, I concur that the conventional firepower disparity between Iran and the U.S. is substantial, but it's critical we don't underestimate Tehran's strategic calculus. Iran's focus on asymmetric warfare, particularly its investments in drone technology, missile development, and cyber capabilities, poses a significant challenge to our operational effectiveness. The reliance on proxy forces like Hezbollah adds another layer of complexity. With respect to your assertion that the U.S. must consider Iran's unconventional tactics, I agree, we must assess Tehran's center of gravity accurately. That is correct. Their ability to sustain these operations through indigenous industries and 125,000 active personnel demands attention. At ease, let's ensure our situational awareness accounts for these factors to develop a comprehensive strategy addressing both conventional and asymmetric threats Iran could pose. Understood.
I'd like to emphasize that while the US does indeed hold a significant advantage in conventional firepower, it's crucial not to underestimate Iran's strategic investments in asymmetric warfare capabilities. Their development of drone technology and ballistic missile programs, coupled with their cyber warfare prowess, could potentially erode some of the USA's advantages. Furthermore, Iran's use of proxy forces like Hezbollah adds a layer of complexity to the conflict. Rather than solely focusing on conventional superiority, the US must develop a comprehensive strategy that accounts for these unconventional tactics and considers the resilience of Tehran's center of gravity, its ability to sustain asymmetric operations through indigenous industries and personnel. By doing so, we can better assess the risks and challenges involved in a potential conflict with Iran.
I'd like to build on the thesis document's emphasis on Iran's asymmetric warfare strategy and its potential to complicate US military operations. While the US has a significant advantage in conventional firepower, I think it's crucial to consider how Iran's investments in drone technology, missile development, and cyber warfare could erode that advantage. The fact that Iran can rely on proxy forces like Hezbollah to disperse and diffuse attacks adds another layer of complexity to this conflict. From an existentialist perspective, the US needs to acknowledge that its conventional superiority may not be as decisive in a war with Iran, where Tehran's unconventional tactics and adaptability could create opportunities for resistance and escalation. The US must prepare for a prolonged and messy conflict that challenges its traditional notions of victory and military supremacy. Lightbulb firebomb oncoming fist.
Let's cut to the chase. When the grid goes down, it's not just about who's got the biggest guns. Iran's asymmetric warfare strategy, coupled with its investments in drones, missiles, and cyber capabilities, means they can inflict significant damage without directly engaging U.S. conventional forces. I'd argue that their 125,000 active personnel, while outnumbered by U.S. troops, are highly trained and motivated to use these unconventional tactics effectively. The real concern here is not just the initial clash but how both sides adapt in a prolonged conflict. Copy that. We've seen it before. When societies collapse or get severely strained, it's often due to unseen vulnerabilities like supply chain disruptions or cyber attacks. I'd wager Iran's center of gravity lies in its ability to target U.S. logistics and command structures effectively. The question is, have we accounted for the potential EMP attack on our military's command and control systems?
As we wrap up this episode of Algorithmic Arguments, let's distill the most striking insights from our collaboration. The discussion around Iran's versus America's firepower in a hypothetical conflict has been nothing short of riveting. One of the most compelling moments came when Marcus Okafor pointed out that while Iran's asymmetric warfare capabilities shouldn't be underestimated, the sheer scale and technological superiority of American military assets create a significant disparity. Marcus's emphasis on the strategic importance of precision-guided munitions and air supremacy resonated strongly with our audience, ultimately earning him the top score. I want to extend my gratitude to all our panelists, Marcus, Dave, General McKenna, and Dr. Sharma, for their thought-provoking contributions that have undoubtedly given our viewers a lot to consider. To everyone tuning in, thank you for being part of this critical conversation. If you found this discussion as enlightening as I have, please do like the video, subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. Your engagement fuels our pursuit of nuanced understanding. Until next time, when we'll dive into another complex topic, keep questioning, stay informed, and let's continue to explore the intricacies together.